Well, hello there. Brainger Ron here, your personal tour guide, as we head down that path of life called Trigeminal Neuralgia. Tripping over Fred's leash at the moment. Today I want to talk to you about flying with trigeminal neuralgia. This is a subject that comes up quite frequently in the TN chat groups, and it's something that I've been really wanting to talk to you about for a very long time. Now, the reason why I haven't talked to you about it until now is because, well, it wasn't until a short time ago I hadn't flown with TN, and I really didn't feel comfortable in offering any type of advice to you about a topic that I hadn't really looked at and done myself. But yeah, I flew. Things went fairly smoothly, and I want to talk to you about how I planned for this trip, along with things I brought on the plane to help ensure that the chances of having a flare were significantly reduced. So, with all that being said, sit down, make yourself comfortable, buckle up, and let's talk. Come on, Fred. Let's go home. All right, folks, welcome back. I've got Fred over there on his bed, snoozing away. Joining me on the couch is actually Miss Lola. You haven't met Lola before. Maybe you'll meet a little bit more of her as more and more episodes come out. Anyway, flying. Take a look at that guy. That was me back in 2019. I was in Scotland celebrating my birthday. This was the last time I actually flew before trigeminal neuralgia came into my life. There were some inklings and a couple symptoms showing up, but nothing fully came out until a couple months later when I had my first flare and BoBo made his appearance known. Now, the flight that I just took sadly was not back to Scotland. I flew from the eastern coast of the United States to more of the central portion of the United States. And to be more specific, I flew from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area to Madison, Wisconsin. We're looking at a flight that was about 850 miles, which breaks down to 1,300 and something kilometers. Flight itself was a couple hours, so it really wasn't anything long or extravagant. I was very fortunate to have it that it was a non-stop flight, so I didn't have to stop off at any of the airports. However, we will talk about airports and all of that in just a moment. Just trying to give you a little bit specifics on the flight, things that I looked at even before I started even packing. All right. For the ticket itself, because trigeminal neuralgia can be so iffy and unpredictable, I did set up the ticket so that if I could not make the flight, I did have it refundable. And when you look at ticket prices these days, that's what I'm really, it's not just seating and window or aisle, anything like that. It really comes down to if I can't make it, what can I get back? And I actually paid for, the tier where it was refundable. Sadly, it wasn't back into my pocket. It actually went into a travel refund so that if I decided to fly or when I decided to fly, that would be there later. I did also opt to have my own seating choice. And for someone with trigeminal neuralgia, that's definitely something to consider once you start making your tickets. Now, if you are part of one of the, if you do fly on one of the airlines that does more like a cattle call, Section A, Section B, Section C, and they all get seated, A, B, C. One thing that you might want to consider when it comes to that, because I know with the cattle call, you don't have a design or specific seat set up for you. I know they're going to, some airlines are getting rid of that. But if you do run into that situation where it's sort of a free for all, where you pick your own seats, generally at the beginning of the boarding, they will call at the gate things like if you are having mobility issues or medical issues, if you have small children, they generally say, okay, will call you and put you on the plane first. Folks, they're talking to you as well. All right. There is no shame on getting on the plane earlier. All right. What they're trying to do is they're trying to load the airplane as fast and as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And you do fit that bill. Look, when you fly, you don't want to have a flare. Well, guess what? They don't want you to have a flare either. So if you're in that situation where they it's a free for all for the seating, and they call for certain people to come along, get on the plane. Nobody's going to ask you. You don't have to explain anything. Just get on the plane. All right. Now, for my flight, I was very fortunate to set up a flight that happened in the early afternoon. I know that there are times where you're basically just subject to whatever time the plane takes off. But for me, I was very fortunate for that. Um, Now, with that being said, when you do look at tickets, if you can, definitely take a look at that time. You see, for me, my biggest fear was I was going to have to get a ticket that was a night flight. And let me explain that. When you go to airports, you're always going to see sort of these large windows, letting in all of the outside, all the ambient light come in. And that's great because you don't have to worry about things like fluorescent lights. You don't have to worry about LED lights or anything like that. Those lights, I'm extremely photosensitive. So when I'm in a situation like that, it's very easy to trigger me. Even going into the restrooms at an airport, with them being so bright, I have to take that all into consideration. So when I flew, even though I knew I didn't have to worry about fluorescent lights or anything like that, one thing or two things that I made certain that I had with me was a nice big rimmed hat and also my super dark sunglasses. These go around my existing sunglasses or my existing eyeglasses. And if you don't have eyeglasses, these still work great. What's really fantastic about them too is they do have covers for the sides of the eyes. If you're anything like me, that little bit of sunlight or fluorescent light or whatever that gets you right in the eye, that's an immediate issue that could cause a flare for me. So if you do have an evening flight, seriously, don't worry about it. Just make certain that you have a nice wide rim hat and a nice pair of wraparound glasses. Just to let you know, I will be putting some links down below for some of these items that I use. I'm not recommending a particular product. It's just something that can kind of get the ball rolling so you can see what's going on. All right. Now, I live in an area where I'm very fortunate to have three different international airports, all within about a 1 hour's driving distance from my home. So when I started looking at my tickets, I looked at all three, and of course, one of them or two of them I'm very familiar with. One of which actually did have an underground tram, cars, subways, things like that to get from the main terminal out to the gates. Um, that one I knew had a lot of bright lights, so these came in really handy. But as it turned out of those three, the one that I hadn't flown in for years, since the 1980s, it's been that long since I actually flew from that airport. That was where I was flying out of. And also, I was going to an airport that I never arrived at. And that did cause a little bit of angst to me. So, one thing you might want to consider, again, even before you start laying out the tickets or anything like that, research the airports. And you can do that actually at the same platform on YouTube. Just put in the name of the airport, and generally you will see YouTubers that would be putting up content where they're actually walking through the airport, where they're flying from that airport. Heck, even some airports have their own videos that they have uploaded to kind of show you the features of that place. And that actually helped relieve a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst that I had, because again, bright lights and things like that were a great concern for me. Now, one thing that you also want to take into consideration is when you're setting up your tickets, if you think that you might need assistance going from where you check in to the gate itself, right there where you write up the tickets, you can request to have someone push you out on a wheelchair to your gate. There's no shame in that, folks. I mean, if you start researching these airports and you think, okay, it's loud, it's big and crowded, it's big lights, I might have issues going from here to there. It's their job, folks. Put it down when you write up your ticket or start inputting all the information for your ticket. It's not going to cost you anything. It's their job. All right. In fact, before Trigeminal came into my life, when I was thinking of retirement plans, one thing that I was thinking of just to keep in shape and put in the miles, and walking all that was actually to pick up one of those jobs, just pushing people along. But of course, Trigeminal rounds of forced retirement, and I really couldn't fulfill that idea. But yeah, it's their job to push people along. All right, again, no shame, and you can always cancel that. Generally, when you have when you about 24 hours, you go online, you confirm your ticket. You can change right then and there if you think you don't need it. But that is a service to be offered as well. All right, so we've made our ticket. We've gone into the airport. We have checked in our bags. We've gotten our tickets. For this flight that I did, I basically checked in all my bags short of my Brainger bag. I didn't really want to do any carry-on. And the reason being was, well, it was my first time flying. I didn't want to have anything, above me that should I have a flare, have to pull it down and then push, wheel it out of the wheel it out of the plane while I'm having a flare. All right. So I had that all checked in. I walked to my gate, and of course, that's where you just sit and wait. Now, one thing that you might want to consider, if you think you're kind of feeling something, or you need that heat. I talked in one of my previous videos about different types of heat pads. One thing that is really nice is when it comes to the airports and the gates, if you look around the seats, you're actually going to see USB ports. And people are using this for all different types of devices. For us with trigeminal neuralgia, one thing you might want to consider getting is a heat pack that has a USB plug on this. You can pop it right in under the seats. And I won't lie to you, the first airport that I flew out of, I had to kind of search around underneath the seats to find it. But when I got to Madison, and when I was flying back out of Madison to come home, they're right there. All right. And what's even better when it comes to things like this with the USB port, you're going to find these on the airplanes as well. In fact, when you set up the tickets, you will see, as you're setting things up, all the information you need to know about that seat. And generally, you're going to see USB port. So for these things are great for that. All right, so we have got our tickets. We've gotten through the terminal. We're at our gate. We are waiting. Now they are loading onto the plane. What do I take on this plane? Well, we already have our hat. We have our glasses. We have our heat pack. And then we go sit down. Now, you selected your seat. And really, it's up to you what you really feel is the most comfortable for you. I know for myself, my trigeminal neuralgia, BoBo, lives on the right side of my face. And in an ideal world, I would sit right there on the right side of the plane where the window is, so I could close the window down. I could turn off that air nozzle from hell, and I have this little comfort zone where I could have, say, like my face mask, my face covering on, and perhaps maybe I would take a small pillow or a scarf and ball it up so I could be comfortable. That would be ideal for me. Unfortunately for me, I have severe nerve damage in my left shoulder, and this goes back well before BoBo. And it's very hard for me to kind of scrunch in my shoulders or have people or have anything bump up against it. So for me, I have to sit in an aisle where my left shoulder is out, and then I have BoBo here with all these seats next to me. No fear. First thing I do when I get in, I turn off that air nozzle from hell because I know for a fact whoever was sitting there before me had it open. And again, with my hat, with my face covering. I don't have to worry about that air coming down for me. And whoever's sitting there over by the window, they're probably going to have that window up. Hey, these things are great, baby. Get them. Get them. Okay, we're in our plane. We're buckled up. We're starting to head out onto out to the runway. If you've never been on a plane, that's still going to be kind of a bumpy ride going out to the runway. You will have turbulence up in the air, but as you're kind of chugging along, get to the runway, you are going to have that little bit of motion. Okay. One thing, if you do get motion sickness, if you have vertigo, if you have nausea, one thing that you might want to consider is just good old Dramamine. Okay. Dramamine helps out immensely in situations like that. Now, I have Dramamine and I keep it with me, but for me, I also have my regular meds and my emergency meds kept in my Brainger bag. Now, in here, I have, again, my medications. I have my emergency meds. Now, for my emergency meds, that includes a sumatriptan inhaler as well as additional scopolamine patches. I've mentioned them before in the past. These are 3-day patches, and they really help keep the vertigo issues that I contend with down substantially. And when I was actually talking to my doctor when he was talking about the scopolamine and all of that, it's basically a beefed up version of Dramamine. So yeah, if you don't have that in your emergency, have that as a prescription, Dramamine will do you just fine. Now, one thing that you also might want to consider looking at is once you start taking off in that airplane and the cabin gets more and more pressurized, some individuals run into issues where you have intense pressure in your ears and it won't pop, and that can turn into a stabbing pain. And of course, I have that issue as well. I have had tubes in my ears for many, many, many years. It was one of the reasons why I was still able to fly for a very, very long time, before trigeminal neuralgia. However, I still took with me, and it was needed absolutely. These these are called earplanes, and I love these things to death. These things will help uh, take care of that pressure, that issues that you have, so you don't really have the big stabbies in your head. It also is a great earplug as well, just on its own. I wear hearing aids, and one of the issues that I have with my hearing aids is, one, I can't hear certain frequencies, but on the other side, I also have several different types of sounds that if I hear them constantly, I get that can touch off a flare or one of my vestibular migraines. So if I'm in a large room and I hear crowds talking and I can't make it out, my brain is still trying to hear all of that noise. And with that jet engine going off, that is that drum that just, we've all known it. If you've ever flown, that drives me buggy. So I actually took off my hearing aids, put in the earplanes. I'm protected from the pressure. I'm protected from the noise. Helped out immensely. Now, with my hearing aids, in fact, this flight that I went to, my hearing aids actually crapped out the day before. So I was having issues hearing anything anyway. So I actually put this on. I've had this for quite a while. And again, this is no shame, folks. I have an issue. I have a neurological issue. I have a hearing issue. I'm letting everybody know that, hey, work with me here. Just work with me. I can't hear it very well. Yell at me. All right. I was a federal employee for almost 30 years. I'm used to people yelling at me. So for this, it's not a problem. Okay. Going back to the Brainger bag, what else do I have in here? Well, again, I have my meds. I have my emergency meds. I keep my scarf in there. I keep my face mask in there. I do keep some Dramamine. I do have my regular hearing plugs that I have, earplugs that I have in there. For this one, I specifically used the earplanes, link below. I also keep in a couple of snacks and whatever in there. But I have 2 pieces of paper, and those 2 pieces of paper are just in case things really went bad for me. And I've never had to use these pieces of paper. All right. One is a document that I got from the Facial Pain Association webpage. This is basically if I have to be hospitalized, this is a recommended treatment for that in the ER. I also do have in there, without my name on it, my medical history. I've printed out surgeries, medications that I'm on, that I have trigeminal neuralgia, that I have vestibular migraines, I have this, I have that, blah, 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 blah. Get the idea. And that's just case in a worst case scenario. But here's the great thing with this flight. I planned. I planned for the tickets. I planned for what I could deal with the just being, in the terminal itself, sitting there at the gate, in the plane, out of the plane. And really, I had zero issues. Well, that's not true. I ran into one issue, and it was my own fault. I went into one of the little stores that they have in there, where you can pick up, books or a magazine, a candy bar, little tchotchkes and things like that. And there was something I was looking at, and I was like, hey, a certain family member of mine would really like this. And I couldn't read the price on it. So what did I do? I did something really silly. I lifted my glasses up a little bit. Those fluorescent lights hit me like lightning. Fortunately, it was just for a second or two. I went and I sat down for a little while. I took my sumatriptan to kind of calm everything down, and I was fine. All right. And I think that's really the one thing that you need to really, really talk to yourself and just get into your head. Look, you have planned for this. All right. Take advantage of what services that the airplane or the airplane and the airport can provide to you. Research that airport. It's not that difficult. So, one thing else, just for your own comfort, you might want to think of getting maybe a neck pillow. And where did I put? Got to get the neck pillow. Hang on. Lola's sleeping on the neck pillow. Anyways, you can get a little neck pillow if you want there, maybe a small blanket, things like that. Whatever is going to make you comfortable. Okay? So, if there's anything I've missed, please put it down in the comments below. I want to make certain that we have this wonderful dialogue. I don't know everything. I can only share with you what I've experienced. So I would love to hear your experiences flying with trigeminal neuralgia. Hopefully, I've been able to give you a couple good pointers, things to consider when or if you fly the next time. So, as always, remember, smile as often as you can, laugh even more. Remember that I love every single one of you. That is except you, BoBo. Screw you, BoBo. Screw you. Lola, you're sitting on my... Yeah. That's okay, honey. Bye, guys.